Jax's revenge domain. 3 federal agents walked into our lobby on a Monday morning at 9 a.m. sharp. I know exactly what they found when they got there. I was sitting on my back porch 20 miles away drinking real coffee, the kind that takes 10 minutes to make, watching a hawk circle over the neighbor's field. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't watching the clock. I already knew how it was going to go. My name is Cole Hartley. I'm 49. For 18 years, I was the facility security officer at Lone Star Defense Components, a private manufacturer of missile guidance hardware outside of San Antonio, Texas. My job was to make sure a $4.2 million DoD contract stayed clean, compliant, and audit-ready at all times. I was the guy who knew where every piece of paper was. I was the guy who knew every protocol, every form number, every deadline. I was the guy who made sure the locks worked and the logs were current and the people who needed clearance had it before they stepped onto the floor. I was good at it. I didn't need anyone to tell me that. I packed my desk on a Thursday. The audit was scheduled for Monday. Nobody thought to ask me about it before they showed me the door. Let me back up. Lone Star had been family-owned since 1987, the Garfield family. Third generation ran a tight ship. I came on at 31, fresh out of a construction safety gig in Houston that paid well but had no future. Lone Star had a DoD facility clearance and a real compliance program, and they needed someone to run it full-time. I said yes. I built the whole FSO operation from scratch over the first 3 years, the documentation system, the visitor logs, the incident reporting chain, the emergency protocols. I wrote the employee security handbook. I sat through 4 DCSA audits and passed every one of them clean. The Garfields sold the company 14 months ago to a private equity group out of Austin. That group installed Brad Weston as CEO. Brad was 41. He'd spent his career in tech, project management software mostly. The kind of company that has a ping-pong table in the break room and calls it culture. He had never set foot inside a facility that required a security badge. He had never read a DD 254. He didn't know what FCL stood for. I know this because in our first meeting, he asked me to explain it. I did. He nodded like he understood. He didn't ask a single follow-up question. That told me everything. For the first few months, Brad followed me around and asked questions that sounded reasonable until you thought about them for more than 10 seconds. Can we digitize the visitor logs? Can we put the compliance records on the cloud? Do we really need physical sign-in sheets at every access point? Every time I gave him the same answer. The DCSA doesn't audit your cloud storage. They show up with a checklist and they want to see paper. They want to flip through a binder and find every document in order. That's how it works. That's how it has always worked. You don't get to modernize federal compliance requirements because you find them inconvenient. Brad would nod and say something like understood, and then 2 weeks later circle back with the same question reframed as an innovation initiative. Then came Tanner Weston, Brad's buddy, 28 years old, background in IT sales. He showed up one Tuesday wearing a jacket over a t-shirt and spent the first 20 minutes of our introduction talking about zero trust architecture and digital transformation. He had a certification in cybersecurity management from an online program, 8 weeks. He was very proud of it. Brad introduced him as a consultant who was going to help modernize the security function. I showed Tanner the FSO binder, 4 inches thick, organized by tab, updated every quarter, 18 years of documentation. He looked at it the way you'd look at a fax machine in 2024, like it was something that technically still worked but shouldn't have to exist. Why isn't this in a shared drive, he asked. Because the DCSA auditors don't bring laptops to read your shared drive, I said. They bring a checklist and a pen. Tanner looked at Brad. Brad smiled the way he always smiled when he thought I was being difficult. I want to be clear. I wasn't difficult. I was just right. There's a difference, even though some people can't tell them apart. Over the next 6 months, I watched Tanner try to fix things that weren't broken. He replaced the front desk sign-in sheet with an iPad kiosk in a lobby with a signal jammer installed specifically to block wireless transmission near the secure area. He wanted to move the visitor authorization log to a cloud platform. He asked me twice if we could automate the KMP signature process. I told him no both times, explained why both times, and both times he went and talked to Brad about it. I could see where it was headed. I'd seen it before, not here, but in other places. A new boss comes in, decides the people who built the system are obstacles, and starts replacing expertise with enthusiasm. It usually ends badly. The only variable is how badly. The axe came on a Thursday at 4 p.m. Brad's assistant sent a calendar invite at 3:47 p.m. Subject line, quick sync, no agenda. No location details beyond Brad's office. In 18 years, I had never been called to a quick sync at 4 p.m. on a Thursday. In corporate language, quick sync means nobody wants to give you time to prepare. It means the decision is already made and the meeting is just the paperwork. I walked down the hall. Reed Navarro, my shift supervisor, was coming out of the break room with a cup of coffee. He saw my face. He'd worked with me for 9 years. He knew. He started to say something. I gave him a small shake of my head. Stay out of it. Brad's office was the only room on the floor with a real window. He was sitting behind his desk, rearranging a stack of papers that I'm fairly certain were blank. Tanner was in one of the guest chairs, sideways, feet dangling over the armrest, scrolling his phone. He was wearing a jacket with a startup logo on the chest. I didn't recognize it. Probably a company that no longer existed. Cole, Brad said, "Have a seat." I sat. I kept my hands on my knees. "We've been evaluating the security function," Brad started. He had a specific face he made when he was delivering bad news, eyebrows pulled together, mouth slightly tight, like he was the one taking the hit. The nature of the threat landscape has changed. Everything is cyber now, digital. We need someone who thinks in that framework natively. I said, "We manufacture physical components for ballistic guidance systems. Someone still has to walk in the door and steal them." "That's legacy thinking," Tanner said, without looking up from his phone. "Everything is data at the source level." I looked at him. He was 28 years old and had never once held a security clearance. He had an 8-week certificate from a website. He was currently sitting in a chair with government-controlled facility access telling me my 18 years of compliance work was legacy thinking. I didn't say any of that. I'd learned a long time ago that the moment you start defending your record to people who haven't read it, you've already lost the room. Brad told me they were releasing me to pursue other opportunities. Effective immediately. 2 weeks severance. 2 weeks. I did the math without meaning to. 18 years. I had skipped a fishing trip in Colorado I'd already paid for because a perimeter sensor malfunctioned and nobody else on the team knew the diagnostic sequence. I had driven back from Dallas at midnight once because we had an unannounced DHS spot check and the gate guard called me in a panic. I had filed incident reports at 11 p.m. on Christmas Eve because the timeline was non-negotiable. None of that was in the severance calculation. It never is. "Okay," I said. Brad blinked. He'd been expecting a fight. I could see it. He'd probably rehearsed responses to arguments I was never going to make. He wanted the drama, raise your voice, threaten legal action, storm out. That gives them a story to tell. It makes the decision look justified. I wasn't going to give him that. I said, "I'll clear my desk." "Who's the acting FSO?" "Tanner is stepping into the role," Brad said, and actually sat up a little straighter when he said it, like he was proud of himself. I looked at Tanner. He had put his phone down and was watching me with the cautious expression of someone who isn't sure if the dog is friendly. I asked, "Does Tanner have his DoD facility clearance eligibility determination? Has he submitted an SF-86? Is his name on the KMP list?" "We're fast-tracking the paperwork," Brad said. "It's an internal transition. There's no fast track for FCL eligibility." I said, "It's a federal process. It takes months. Tanner cannot legally serve as FSO without it." Brad waved his hand. "Red tape," he said. "Tanner has system access. That's what matters operationally." I sat there for one more second, long enough to make sure I was right about what I was about to not say. I was right. "All right," I said. I stood up and walked out. Back in my office, I started putting things in a box. It didn't take long. I'm not a sentimental person at work. A coffee mug. A printed photo from a hunting trip 3 years ago. A stress ball I'd had since the 2019 audit that had lost most of its shape. I moved methodically left to right across the desk. And then I stopped. The FSO binder was sitting on the corner of my desk where it always sat. Black 3-ring, 4 inches thick, label on the spine I'd printed and laminated myself back in 2007. It held everything, the SF3 through 28. The current KMP list with active signatures. The DCSA audit prep checklist. The one I'd updated 3 months ago specifically for the review coming up on Monday. Every visitor, log from the past 3 years. Every incident report. The contact sheet for our industrial security representative at DCSA. The emergency notification protocol. 18 years of documentation. Organized, current, and ready. I want to be honest about what went through my mind when I looked at that binder. Part of me thought about leaving it, just walking out and letting whatever happened happen, but I knew what would happen. Tanner would find it eventually, not understand half of it, start pulling pages out of order, and by Monday morning it would be a disaster even before the auditors arrived. Another part of me thought about calling Brad's assistant and saying, "There's a DCSA audit Monday at 9 a.m., and here's what you need, 15 seconds, done." I thought about that option for a while. I turned it over. I knew what would follow. Brad would spend the weekend panicking, put together something incomplete, probably still fail the audit, and then tell the DCSA investigator that the previous FSO had left the program in disarray. I'd seen that move before too. The blame travels downhill, and they always aim it at the door that just closed. I thought about my severance agreement. Section 4, Paragraph B, employee agrees to return all company property upon termination. The binder wasn't on the company asset list. I had checked, not that morning, but I knew it had never been inventoried. It was a working document, not equipment. It was mine to return if asked. Nobody asked. I put it in the box. I picked up the box. I dropped my badge on the front desk without breaking stride and walked out into a Thursday afternoon that was warm and bright and felt slightly unreal. I put the box in my truck. I drove home. I didn't call anyone. The binder sat on my kitchen table for 3 days. Friday passed quietly. I reorganized my toolbox, something I hadn't done in 2 years. Every socket in order by size, every wrench on its peg. It took about an hour and I didn't think about work once, which told me more about my mental state than I would have admitted out loud. Saturday, I drove out to the range in the morning and put 60 rounds through my 38. Came back, made lunch, watched the first half of a college game that didn't matter to me. Reed texted around 2 p.m. I read it and set my phone face down on the counter. Tanner replaced the lobby sign-in sheet with an iPad kiosk. It needs a Wi-Fi connection. Lobby has the signal jammer. Nobody can complete sign-in. Brad walked past it 3 times and said it just needs time to sync. I didn't reply. I wasn't being cold about it. Replying would have been interference. I was a civilian now. Civilians don't fix badge systems for companies that just fired them. Sunday night, another one from Reed. Tanner wrote the facility master override codes on a sticky note. On his monitor, visible from the hallway, I read it twice, poured a glass of bourbon, sat with it. I want to explain something about override codes for people who haven't worked in a DoD facility. Those codes are not like a Wi-Fi password. They control every electronic lock, every alarm zone, every access point in the building. If someone walks past Tanner's monitor and takes a photo, they have the keys to every door in a facility that manufactures components for ballistic guidance systems. That's not a compliance issue. That's a federal security incident. I thought about calling someone, not Brad. I'd blocked him Friday morning after he texted asking for the admin password to the badge system. The one on the sticky note, he said, isn't working. The audacity of that text was almost impressive. He fires me on Thursday and needs tech support by Friday. I blocked the number and made eggs. I could have called our DCSA industrial security representative, left an anonymous tip. Technically, I still had the contact number. Technically, I was a citizen with knowledge of a potential security violation. Technically, a lot of things. I thought about what would happen if I did. DCSA would call the facility. Brad would answer. Brad would say the previous FSO was disgruntled and making accusations. There'd be paperwork, a response, a counter-response. By the time it resolved, the audit would already be over, and I'd be the one who looked like I had an axe to grind. I put my phone on the charger and went to bed. Monday morning, I woke up at 6 without an alarm. 18 years of 5 to 45 a.m. doesn't let go overnight. I made coffee. Real coffee. I sat on the back porch and watched the sky go from gray to pale blue. A hawk was working the field behind the neighbor's fence, circling slow and patient. I watched it for a while. At 9 a.m. sharp, the DCSA auditors arrived at Lone Star Defense Components. I know this because Reed was already texting from a bathroom stall. 3 of them, 2 men, 1 woman. The woman has a laptop open before she's through the door. She's got the look. You know the look. I knew the look. Lead auditor goes in like she already knows what she's going to find, and she's just there to document it. I'd worked with Lee twice over the years. She was good at her job in the specific way that makes people on the other side of the clipboard uncomfortable. She didn't accept excuses. She didn't accept partial credit. She moved through a checklist like she was disarming something. Page tried to get them to sign in on the iPad. It's still buffering. Lee asked for the paper log. Paige said they went paperless. Lee wrote something down. I poured a second cup of coffee. Lee asked for the FSO. Paige went to get Tanner. I sat back in my chair. Here's where I have to be honest with you. Part of me felt something in that moment, not satisfaction exactly. More like the specific feeling you get when you've been watching something unstable for a long time and you finally hear it give way. You didn't cause it. You just knew it was coming. Tanner came out from the back, no badge, carrying a coffee. He introduced himself as head of security and compliance. I closed my eyes for a second. I could picture it without trying. Tanner walking into that lobby with his startup jacket and his 8-week certificate and his complete absence of awareness about what was standing in front of him. Lay with her laptop open, pen in hand, looking at him the way she looked at every checklist item that wasn't going to pass. Lay asked for his clearance documentation. Tanner said he was in the process of getting cleared. There it is. Lee asked for the SF-328. The SF-328 is the certificate pertaining to foreign interests, one of the foundational documents in any FCL package. It's not obscure. It's not a technicality. It's page 1 of the compliance record. If you're the FSO and someone asks you for the SF-328 and you don't know what that is, you're not the FSO. You're someone sitting in the FSO's chair. Tanner asked her to spell it. Reed followed that with 3 words. It's over, Cole. He wasn't wrong. I knew exactly what happened next because I'd seen Lee work. She would close her laptop, not slam it. Lee never slammed anything. Just close it quietly, which was somehow worse. She would take one more note. She would tell Tanner she needed to speak with the facility director, and she would do all of it in the same calm level tone she used for everything, because she didn't need to raise her voice. The checklist did that for her. Brad just came in. He said ecosystem twice in 30 seconds. I stood up, stretched, and went inside to make breakfast. By 11 a.m., Reed's texts had slowed down. That's how I knew the active phase was over. When things are still moving, Reed sends short bursts every few minutes. When it goes quiet, it means the auditors have taken control of the room and nobody inside is doing anything except sitting and waiting. The final summary came at 11:22. Lee declared the FCL suspended pending remediation, said the facility failed to produce an active FSO, a current SF-328, or a valid KMP signature set. Brad tried to argue. She gave him a form to sign acknowledging the finding. He signed it. 4.2 MIM contract goes on hold until clearance is restored and a corrective action plan is approved by DCSA. Tanner is in the break room. He asked Paige if this was going to be on his record. I read that last line twice. Then I finished my eggs. Here's something I've learned in 18 years of compliance work that nobody teaches you in a classroom. Experience isn't just about knowing the procedures. Anybody can read a manual. Experience is knowing which problem is coming before it arrives, knowing exactly how much pressure a system can take before it fails, and knowing, when you're the one who built the system, precisely what happens when someone pulls out the load-bearing piece and expects the ceiling to hold. Brad thought he was replacing a person. He was actually dismantling an infrastructure. He didn't know the difference because he had never built anything that had to pass a federal inspection. That's not unique to Brad. I've seen it in 3 companies over my career. New leadership comes in, looks at the people who've been there the longest, and sees cost instead of capital. They see someone who asks hard questions and calls it resistance. They see someone who says that's not how federal compliance works and call it a bad attitude. Then they replace that person with someone cheaper and younger and more agreeable. And for a few months, everything looks fine because the infrastructure the previous person built is still holding. And then the auditors show up. You don't bench your starting quarterback the week before playoffs and then wonder why the offense couldn't move the ball. Brad did exactly that and then signed the finding acknowledgement form to prove it. The call from Renee Dalton came at 2:14 p.m. She was VP of Compliance at the parent company, the group that had owned Lone Star before the sale. Calm voice, clipped sentences. She said she'd been briefed on the audit outcome. She said the situation needed to be resolved quickly. She said she needed someone with FCL experience to come in, rebuild the compliance program, and guide the recertification process. I told her I was exploring other opportunities. She offered reinstatement at my previous role, plus 12%. I told her going back to the same site wasn't something I was interested in. There was a pause. Renee was smart enough to know I wasn't bluffing and experienced enough to not try to call it anyway. I said, I heard the regional compliance oversight position has been sitting open for about 8 months, multiple sites, someone to make sure the FSO programs are actually being maintained and not just checked off on a spreadsheet. Renee said that role wasn't officially posted. I said I understood. She called back 52 minutes later. The role was posted as of that afternoon. Director of Regional Compliance, 6 sites across Texas and New Mexico, salary band considerably above my previous position. Come in Wednesday to discuss terms. I said I'd be there. I want to be clear about one thing before I close this out, because I've told this story a few times now, and I always get the same question. Did I take the binder to hurt them? No. I took it because I built it, and it was mine to return if asked. Nobody asked. That's the honest answer. But I also won't pretend I didn't know what Monday morning would look like without it. I'm not naive. I've been doing this long enough to understand exactly what a DCSA auditor needs to see when she walks through the door. And I knew that without that binder, without a cleared FSO, without any of the documentation I'd spent 18 years maintaining, the outcome was not going to be a passing grade. I knew that on Thursday afternoon when I put it in the box, I made a choice, I'm at peace with it. Brad was terminated for cause 3 weeks later. Gross negligence in personnel decisions, violation of DoD contractor compliance standards, failure to maintain facility clearance requirements. He lost his clearance. The private equity group that backed him cut ties faster than I expected, which tells me they were already watching for reasons to do it. Last I heard, he's consulting for a company that makes app-controlled irrigation systems. Sounds about right. Tanner left the building the same day the audit concluded. He was asked to leave his access badge and his visitor log tablet. He left looking like a man who had just discovered that not everything in life could be solved with a better user interface. Reed texted me that evening, short one. New acting FSO arrived. First thing she asked for was the paper logs. Second thing she asked was where you were. I told him to give her my email. She wrote a week later, professional note, 4 sentences. Said the previous documentation system was the most organized she'd ever inherited. Said it made her job significantly easier. Said thank you, I saved the email, didn't reply right away. Had some things to get through first, 6 sites to audit, 3 corrective action plans to review, 1 FSO program in New Mexico that turned out to be held together with hope and a shared Google Drive folder. My new office in Austin has a real window. Looks out at a parking structure and a live oak that somebody planted 20 years ago and is finally big enough to actually shade something. I drink good coffee now every morning because I have the time to make it right. Competence isn't loud. It doesn't argue with people who've already made up their minds. It doesn't waste energy trying to convince someone who isn't listening. It just shows up when the auditors do. And when it doesn't show up, when you've pushed it out the door with 2 weeks severance and a dismissive wave, what's left is a man in a startup jacket who doesn't know how to spell SF3728, standing in a lobby that can't process a sign-in, waiting for a federal agent to close her laptop. Mine always passed. Every single audit, 18 years. That part, nobody could take with them when they showed me the door. The men who replace experience with enthusiasm always find out the difference, usually in front of someone with a clipboard and nowhere else to be. You can disrupt a process, restructure a team, and rebrand a job title. You cannot disrupt consequences.